And welcome to today's edition of Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, a lot of you are going to be amazed at this. I know when I first found out about it, I didn't believe it. But in fact, there is a state-sanctioned kidnapping industry. You know, we hear in the news, there are headlines every day. There's something in the news about sex trafficking, child trafficking, and we think about it, with people taking children over the border, for example. We don't think about it as being from our own government. Um, and in other words, there is, believe it or not, a state-sanctioned kidnapping industry. I know you don't believe it, but my guest is going to explain it all to you. Her name is Maureen Steele. She is a co-founder of American Made Foundation. She's a seasoned paralegal, writer, and strategic advocate dedicated to truth, justice, and restoring American values. And in American Made Foundation really takes people's ground, what do you, ground, people working on the ground. What do you, I'm losing the word here. People who are angry about things, basically, it comes down to people who believe that there are things wrong in our society. Grassroots, that's the word. She helps grassroots organizations get heard and seen through this foundation that she co-created. And including one of the things that they are working on is this state-sanctioned kidnapping industry. And I'm sure you will understand and believe once you hear all the information today. Now, Maureen, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Lieberman. Thanks for having me on.
Um, you're welcome. The reason why I wanted to have you on today was because this is something that I actually, well, as a forensic psychiatrist and expert witness, I do a lot of different cases, civil and criminal, and in the civil realm, that includes divorce and custody cases. And through the years, I have been, of course, involved with CPS, Child Protective Services, and the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. It's called different things in different states. And have much to my chagrin have seen that the decisions that they make are generally the opposite of what they should be making. In other words, they take children away from families that are actually healthy, or the parent that is actually the better parent, and they put children back with the wrong parent. But in a lot of cases, they don't put children back altogether. And that is what you are working on. So why don't you tell us these shocking, let me just ask you first, how long have you been working on this particular project? I know you do a lot of other grassroots organizations. So how long have you been, in other words, how long have you known about what CPS and the other child's supposed protective services are doing?
About 17 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way I found out about something was that one of the times that someone called me to be an expert on their case, it was a mother, and she was telling me about all these things. And do you know that they purposely don't want to give children back because they are making money off of this? And I thought, well, oh, this mother, something is wrong with this mother. And then, of course, gradually, it has become clearer and clearer. But so why don't you tell us how you came to know about it and then what you know?
Sure. Well, I came to know about it when I was thrust into that corrupt system. I was a battered wife, and my children were harmed. And so we were thrust into the CPS system. I got away somehow, miraculously. I got out with four of my children, but but I mean, we certainly didn't come out unscathed. And at the time, back in 2006, I remember saying, you know, I will spend the rest of my life telling people, telling battered women, don't leave. If you think your life is hell now, escape and get yourself into the system, because as scarred and as injured as you are being a battered wife and watching your children get battered, the system will do far worse to you. And they did. I was scarred far more by the system. It took me 5 years to plan our escape, and we got out. But yeah, we were really harmed by the system. They didn't do good investigations. The people that I was subjected to at CPS, it was DCYF in the state that I was dealing with, they sent in kids. I mean, literally, Dr. Lieberman, kids 22 years old, like fresh out of college with their psychology degree. And
Mhm.
these were the kids with their degree in social work that were deciding my fate. And here I was, smart, professional. I was an at-home mom. I was a good mom. I was an upstanding citizen. I ran the bake sales at school. No one thought I was an irresponsible parent. And I had this girl come in and go, she had a checklist and she's going, okay, well, I see you've brushed your teeth today. I see that, you're clean. Could you tell me where your children are while you're here talking to me today? Where are your children? Are your children somewhere safe? I mean, this is how I was talked to. I was talked down to like I was some kind of low functioner. And if you're not a person who has a good handle on your emotions, you'd snap. And as soon as you
Yes.
step on one of these people, bite their head off, and as soon as you do that, well, oh boy, we've exhibited some unstable behaviors. And now they're all over you. And so they almost push people into a reaction like that. Luckily, I didn't. But it was all I could do to sit there and bite my tongue while being subjected to that. So that's kind of, my first experience with CPS. Then, my children were court ordered into therapy, and these are not, some more of the parasitic businesses and industries that glom on to CPS and are part of that whole money making machine. So here I am. I had my soon to be ex-husband was a wealthy man. We had excellent insurance. Obviously, the children were still under his insurance, and I wanted my children, we were in the New England area, to go to Boston's Children's Hospital to get x-rays, evaluated, and to the psychiatry program there. And the courts wouldn't allow me to do that. Now, I wasn't stripped of my parenting rights. I am the mother. No one accused me of being abusive or anything like that. Go ahead.
Wait, wait. Let me just stop you because I want to ask some questions. Um, how did you wind up in the office of CPS to begin with? I mean,
Oh, oh, good question. So we had been abused since shortly after I got married. And it was 3 days after my eldest son was born that my husband started abusing our children. He picked up the 3-day-old baby and just screamed, shut the bleep up in the baby's face very loudly, and slammed him on the bed next to me. And I remember I was 22 years old, a young mother, and not didn't have a supportive family. And I just remember thinking and starting to cry and pulling my son close to me and just thinking, dear God, what have you gotten yourself into? This guy is crazy. And as the years went on, you try to make the best of things. And when you're in an abusive relationship like that, you almost get convinced you're the problem. And I came from an abusive family myself, so I was always the problem there. So why wouldn't I be the problem here? And
yeah.
so, anyway, the abuse progressively got worse. He controlled the finances, kept track of the mileage on my car. I had 4 sons, all about a year and a half apart. I wasn't allowed birth control or anything like that. And so, not that I wanted a lot of children, it was just unfortunate that I had, children with this man. And so anyway, his abuse escalated over the years. When Boston's Children's Hospital finally stepped in, my 2 older boys had permanent brain damage. Their spinal cords were separating from their brain stems from being lifted by the neck.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
they did full body MRIs, and the children all looked like they had been in major car accidents. I was asked, had they been in car accidents? And no, they hadn't. They just had, the unfortunate father that they did. I had a dislocated jaw. And Boston's Children's Hospital wrote a letter directly to the judge in our case, saying that all the heads of all the departments there took this case because they were convinced that they had enough evidence to put my ex-husband behind bars for the rest of his life. And
Yes.
the DA of New Hampshire never even went to collect the evidence. So this is how corrupt the system is, especially when you have an ex-husband who's well connected and knows all the right people and all the wrong ones. So, and we were the anomaly. You don't typically see like really profound abuse cases like this in a wealthier family. And we weren't, I mean, I wasn't rich, but we were definitely well off. And you just typically don't see that, so they're used to dealing with the low functioners. Or people that they think are. I think they think a lot of people are low functioners because they don't have money, but I know a lot of people that are highly intelligent that just don't have a lot of, resources, but they have their brain and that's how they get through life because they're highly intelligent. So,
So how old, um, I mean, when was it that what made you, first of all, finally decide to get out?
I thought one of us was going to die. I really did. I thought it was just a matter of time till one of us died. And I had hit such a major depression at that point in my life. I was 33 years old and just, I mean, I didn't even know what my favorite color was anymore, Carol. I mean, you're
Uh-huh.
just, I'm told what to think and, just shut up and sit down and do what you're told. And anyway, so and then just trying so hard to keep my kids safe. And I was highly intelligent, and did have a forensic psychological eval. It's so interesting that you do those as well. And my ex-husband's was 36 pages long, mine was 18, but it came out that I was highly intelligent. They do your IQ, how it goes. And they test all facets of your personality. What'll it take for someone to snap? How long is their fuse? All of those things. And his was so damning of that, he had a narcissistic personality disorder, all of these horrible things, and that he should never be left alone with a child. And um, all of that. So we made it out, but and the forensic psychologist we had was good, and I don't think was involved in the system. But I will tell you that there are doctors that are paid off by the system to pull kids and to fake test results saying that a mother had drugs in her cord blood when the baby was born. And these are, it's provably false. And people have the documents to show that the doctor lied on the paperwork, but that baby was ripped right off its mother's breast out of the delivery room.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many horrible stories. Mine is just one, but that you had asked me, I didn't come on to talk about my story at all. It's just,
Well, no, but this is a good explanation. But so had you hired the forensic psychologist that you went to? Did you
no, it
hire
was
them?
court appointed, court
Huh.
appointed. Hmm.
But just
And
so
they
happened.
did that because his whole defense was Maureen's crazy. Maureen's crazy. And that's so many men's defense. It's a nuts or sluts defense, She's a slut or she's a nut. It's one of those two. In my case, I was both. And I've been called so much worse since, so it doesn't bother me at all with all the movements I've been involved with. But
Yeah.
so
Well, let's
any
stop here because we're coming to a break.
sure.
Um, and we will kind of leave people on a cliff as to what the next I wanted you to clarify a little bit about what the progression was, like who you called and how
Hmm.
you got into the system.
Sure.
All right, well, we will be right back. My guest is Maureen Steele. If you think that I mean, her story is kind of extreme, but I mean, imagine this though, someone with her intelligence and her awareness and all of that could get roped into this. If it can happen to someone like that, imagine, people who are not as familiar with or as not sophisticated with the system. All right, well, stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Dr. Carol's Couch. And welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. We're talking today about, did you know there was a state-sanctioned kidnapping industry? My guest is Maureen Steele. She is a co-founder of American Made Foundation, and later on we'll be telling you more about what else American Made Foundation does. But we left off where where Maureen was getting into had escaped with her life and her children's lives and found herself in this very unfair, corrupt basis system. So tell us, like, what was the first thing you did after you decided you were going to die if you stayed?
So we were divorced at this point, and my children got one weekend a month at his house, and they were to a point they didn't want to go there at all. So I would have to go there with them. And he had told me that I was still his wife. It didn't matter what divorce papers said. And then he'd take me to court if the kids didn't get to his house, which they just refused to do. And my children were big. He was big. He's 6'7", you know. And so the kids were big, and they were already bigger than me and stronger than me at 10. So it's not like I can wrestle these kids into the car. So I would just tell them I'll go there with you. And so I would make dinner, and I would try to keep it calm and him calm so that he was nicer to the kids. And so one night the kids had always told me that as soon as I leave, that he's hurting them again, and he's screaming and he's intimidating them. So I very nervously, and I didn't have a lot of money. I was pretty broke at the time. I got one of those little voice activated recorders, and I had given it to my eldest son, and he put it behind the curtain in his bedroom. And sure enough, I had played it out that I told him I'm going to be going to the bookstore to drink tea and read. I used to like to do that, go to Barnes and Noble. And so I'm going to go do that tonight. And he didn't like that, but I had told him in the morning that I was going to do that. And so I did it knowing that, okay, the tape recorder's there, Murph's got it set up, and once I leave, we'll see what happens. Well, sure enough, they had a couple friends over as well that weekend. As soon as I was gone, I wasn't even 2 miles from the house, and the phone rings, and it's one of the friends calling saying, Maureen, you got to come home. My ex, he said the name is, hurting Murphy. I can hear it. And so I turned around and went back, and I have the tape still. And when I walked in the door, I pretended like nothing happened. And I'm like, oh, I forgot something. I'm so stupid. I forgot my wallet, and I'm faking it. And he comes out of scratch that. He comes
Yeah.
out of my son's bedroom and acting like, um, oh, hi, like nothing happened when I had already gotten the call. And I just pretended like I didn't get one, made up a story that the kids needed to go to my house to work on a project. And we left, and I grabbed that tape deck, and we got into the car with just the clothes on our backs, and we had to leave everything. And I knew we'd never go back there. And we didn't. And we left the house and went directly to the police station, where we spent several hours, and I was terrified. Um, and that was one of the things that I found very interesting, was how I wasn't believed. And had I not had that tape deck
Oh,
and
wow.
that audio, and he said, what's been going on at your house is not a misdemeanor. What's been going on at your house are crimes. And what we were laughing at that tape, because it was nothing. That tape to us was I didn't think it would get us where we needed to go, what went on that night while I was gone, for that, 15 minutes. Because it just wasn't, I mean, stuff happened there in our home on a daily basis that were so much worse than that.
Yeah.
So we went to the cops, and I nearly dove across the table when that cop said, we're going to bring him a restraining order. And I thought, you can't. And I said, well, first of all, when you go to do that, he's going to tell you I'm crazy. He's going to act all like, oh, what's she doing now? And it was so funny. That's exactly what he did. That's what the cops told me after. But I was sobbing, and I was trying to dive across the table to the detective because I wanted to get the tape deck out of his hand. I didn't want him to have it. I was so terrified of what was going to happen with him knowing I was leaving and I'd gone to the police.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was terrifying, and it was really 2 years of absolute hell, 5 years really, but the first two were really acute and really terrible. Um, but that's really how it started. So
So
that's how
then,
we called CPS. And that was interesting because CPS had already had an open case. I guess one of the teachers had just called on Friday. This happened on
Huh.
Saturday. Monday, they were going to reach out to us anyway. So that's how CPS got involved. And, um, you know, the system is a mess. And again, I was dealing with young, really young people. You know, a guardian ad litem was appointed who reported things wrong to the court and reported things wrong from Boston's Children's Hospital. When they got involved, they would say, that's not, she'd write a report and they'd be like, that's not what we said. And now it's in the report and you can't change it. And she goes to the court and says, no,
Yes.
that's what they
I,
said. And even with the doctors going, no, it isn't what we said, and they write a letter of correction, the court would still go, and DCYF and the judge would still go with what the guardian ad litem wrote when it was
yes.
wrong. And when you have even people saying that's not what we said, she's lying. So it was just
I know.
frustrating.
I have had experience with guardian ad litems, and they're supposed to be the reason why they exist. Well, the reason why they exist is to make money, apparently, and to forward the plan of these institutions to keep the kids. But the you're supposed to think, you're supposed to believe that they are appointed as like the lawyer for the kids, you know, and a non-biased person who's going to just be looking out for the welfare of the kids. And in fact, that's not what happens.
No. And most of these people, when you start getting into CASA and all of that, you know, these are people that I think just want to feel important. They have absolutely no legal background. They have no background in child psychology or anything. They're just
Yes.
people that want to control someone else's life and feel important. And you know, I think a lot of that oftentimes with police officers as well. God help me, but I've known so many of them when they've gone in and they can't even write their application. It's, you know, these are people that are just seeking power, and anyone that seeks power should never have it.
That's true. Um, well, just one thing. So as these years were going on, and he was weren't when he would like abuse the children,
Mm.
didn't I presume you would have brought the children to a doctor, right?
No, not always. I mean, they weren't, you know, it wasn't like they had broken bones or something like that. It was, you know, they'd be crying, they'd have bruises, certainly.
But you
But
couldn't tell
no,
how bad it was, in other words.
right. And I was intelligent enough to know that I'm not walking into a pediatrician's office who's a mandatory reporter before my kids are old enough to speak for themselves, because what's going to happen is he's going to get the kids because he's, you know, he lies, and you know he'll get the kids, and that, or we get 50-50 and the kids are going to be abused when they go over there. So I was intelligent enough to
Uh-huh.
understand the system and know that until these kids are old enough and they've had it enough where they're ready to speak out against their own father, I got to sit right here and just pray to God we all survive this.
Huh. Okay. So now it's a very sad story. How old are they now?
My oldest is 12 and my youngest is 6.
And are they doing okay?
Oh, you mean, oh, I thought you meant in that story. That's when
Oh,
we
no, no, no. I
Oh,
mean
no, no,
now.
they're all adults. They're married. They have children of their own. They're all thriving. They're all functioning members of society. They're all very handsome, kind, good men. I'm proud of all of them. They're
Oh,
wonderful
that's good.
fathers, wonderful mates and husbands, and yeah, and wonderful friends. So yeah,
Well,
it all worked out.
you must have been giving them therapy after they must have gotten therapy after all of this.
Um, Oddly, only a little bit, just because of CPS. We were court ordered into just absolute pathetic help. You know, again, the psychologists are working at a mental health center that again is one of those feeders for CPS. You had children here that are, you know, absolutely traumatized, and their whole life crumbled on them in one day, as did mine. Everyone we knew and loved were gone. We were on the run. And so it's like a tsunami coming in and wiping your life out. And we couldn't talk to anybody. We couldn't, he had everyone on his team. I had to move the kids' schools before we could leave. And it was just really something. We were hunted. I would get 8 by 10 photos. We lived in a hotel for a while, and they'd be black and white photos underneath my windshield in the morning. And they would be pictures of me the day before holding the kids' hands walking into Walmart. And then those 8 by 10 black and whites were underneath my windshield. Just a message, I'm watching you. It was terrifying. And then you take that to the police and they're like, well, who took these, ma'am? Who took the pictures? Did someone sign their name? And it
Uh-huh.
was just, they were so sarcastic to me.
Uh-huh.
I knew that they were on
His
team
side. Yeah.
ex-husband, and because he was working for a company that supplied them with stuff. And so all of these people are greased and they're all part of this really disgusting system that harms families.
Okay, so now tell us about how you looked into the system and what you found in terms of this kidnapping.
Oh, sure. So over the years, as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a paralegal, and so I practiced family law, and I would see these guardian ad litems and their reports, and you know, um, see all this nonsense going on. And just like you said, Dr. Lieberman, that you've been in cases where it is so clear that the kids shouldn't go to this parent's off the rails, and then there's the good parent, and the courts will give, and CPS will give the kid to the parent who's a train wreck. And I was wondering why. Why is this happening? Why are they doing this? And so over the last 4 years, I've done a deep dive on the inner workings of our government, and we're seeing it a lot now. So if there's people out there doubting it, just look at what Doge has uncovered. All the trillions of dollars they have funneled, and they're moving through NGOs, and they're doing the same through these agencies. And in 1997, Hillary Clinton wrote the Adoption and Safe Families Act. And she wrote it, and Bill Clinton put it into law. He signed it. And what that basically did was it monetized the heads of the children. So money comes from HHS, from the Fed, and it goes down into these state-sanctioned, these agencies, these CPS, DCYF. Every state kind of has a different name for these child protection services. And now they're getting bonuses if you adopt a kid out. You get more money if you put a kid in a foster home that is a group home versus just a foster home. But everyone's making a lot of money on this. So now you have, local county mental health centers that have people that aren't qualified. You're dealing with kids, like in my case, that need level 5 trauma treatment experts. And there's not even a person in the state, by the state's own accounting, that is level 2 trauma treatment trained. So, like, I want to take my kids to Boston to get the best help, and they're saying, no, you got to take them here. So it turned my kids off to therapy so much.
Oh,
One of the therapists said, when your dad hurt you, and when he would kick you and you'd have, bruises, and he would tell you, the kids wrote down all the names he called them, and your father would call you these names and tell you your mother hated you and that he'd kill her if you told, did you ever think of having a popsicle? It's a party for your tongue. This was the advice that my
what?
kids were
Wait,
getting.
wait. Did
It
you
was,
ever think of having a popsicle? What?
it's a party for your tongue. That's a direct quote. And I mean, my kids hated these people. They didn't
Why?
want to go
I
there.
don't even understand what that means.
This is
Why
this
would they say, what did they mean by that?
I don't even know. I mean, it was like having a popsicle was going to undo the fact that the tsunami just took their life out, that their father did this to them, that we're on the run, that, we're living in shelters, we're living in tents, we're living in hotel rooms, while he's living in a 5,000 square foot property. It was so over the top. And so, but so when I said I can't, this isn't helping, and even went to the guardian ad litem, this is causing more hardship. The kids hate it. They're crying when they leave. They're hysterical. I'm like, I don't want to take them anymore. If you don't take them, we're going to take your kids. We're going to put your kids in a foster home.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just threatened. So you have to go along with their protocols, even when their protocols are going to cause your children harm. And you have the means and the ability to get them to level 5 trauma trained specialists. They don't do it. So
Okay, so tell us more about what your investigation found, like in terms of, uh,
so
like how did
right.
you find out about that they get money?
Mhm.
I mean, besides Hillary Clinton's, like how did you find out that this was all a plot, kind of?
Oh, you can go back to You can see it with Doge. They funnel money through these organizations.
Yes,
And so,
yes.
so there are some people far more that have conducted far greater investigations that I have, and they have let me stand on their shoulders here. I have reams of paperwork showing how they're funneling money through, from CPS into these foster homes, into these mental health facilities, and the money is going back. Judges, hospitals are getting paid off. There's a children's hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, actually, that has a CPS office in the basement, and that if a parent refuses a shot, or anything like that, the nurses go right
Oh,
downstairs,
wow.
tell CPS there's a courthouse right next door, and they go there and they get an order to take that baby. Now, that's a parent's right to get a shot for their child or not. So this is what's happening, and all of these people are on the payroll. Everyone's getting kickbacks. It's almost very similar to COVID with the shots when those doctors were getting
Uh-huh.
those sheets. If everyone in your practice is vaccinated, and all of your patients are, you get an $800,000 bonus. If half are vaccinated, you get, a $350,000 bonus. And so, we have all of that in writing as well. And
Huh.
it's very, very similar how the system works. So it's money laundering, it's racketeering, it's fraud, it's all of that, and it's all at the expense of our children.
Um, so what did you do? I mean, with this knowledge, what are you doing with this knowledge? Are you trying to put anybody in jail?
Yes, our goal is to completely shut down CPS, that whole agency is gone. And with the Chevron deference that the Supreme Court overturned in July of 2024, that took all the power away from these agencies. They can't make law, and it's put the judges on notice. You can't let them set the rules. You have, as the judge, have to look at this. And they haven't done that, especially with CPS. So everyone's still falling in line because this is a very lucrative system. Um,
Wait, they haven't done what?
to overturn the Chevron deference, saying that these agencies, like a CPS, they don't have any power. They can't take kids, they can't do any of this, and they certainly can't make rules and laws. And that's exactly what they're doing. The CPS goes into courts and they just hand a report to the judge, and the judge rubber stamps it.
Yes,
Doesn't even ask
yes,
how they conducted their investigation, who was
yes.
interviewed. None of it. Nothing goes before that judge. And so these courts as well are administrative courts. They are unconstitutional. Um, as far as that goes, we that is against our charters of freedom. When our country was founded, we had common law courts, and you were always supposed to have a jury of your peers. Well, your greatest possession is your DNA and your child, and they are taking children away from parents without a trial by jury, without due process, without anything. I mean, you're missing so much in these courts. The judge doesn't even hear about the investigation or who was asked what.
I
None of that goes on.
I just want to add something here that I know which Maureen is saying is absolutely true, not only from her investigations and so on, but I have seen that happen in courtrooms, and it is so unbelievably frustrating. Like for example, if I have examined a child and there was one, I think the top example I could give actually is well, this really wasn't so much CPS, but well, it was because they were doing the examination. There was a mother, there was a couple who were getting divorced. And I was doing therapy with the mother and doing an evaluation in terms of who would be getting the child. And so she brought the children in. She had a little boy and a little girl. And after I was talking to them, I could tell right away that the girl had been sexually abused by the father, and the boy was being physically abused. And I mean, not right away. I did examine. I mean, I didn't physically examine them, but I did talk to them for, a whole session, and I came to that conclusion. And um, and so I reported it to CPS that they're being abused. And CPS and the key here is that the father was an executive at Paramount movie
Yeah,
studio.
yeah,
He
it
was,
changes everything who they are. I'll tell you
yes,
that.
exactly. He was a big
Yeah,
shot.
yeah,
And so the CPS supposedly, talked to the kids but when they were with their father, and they just came to the conclusion, or well, no, wait, well, the father got I think a psychologist to examine them, and the psychologist, who is one of these paid, he will say whatever the person pays him money to say. He of course took the father's side and said, "Oh no, that can't be happening." So they left them. They had shared custody, and my point was that the father shouldn't be having any custody, and he should have at most have supervised visitation. So anyway, then like a year passed, and one day a teacher at their school saw the little girl masturbating.
Mhm.
And that is one of the signs of masturbating in the full view of everybody else. And that's one of the signs of a child being overly sexually stimulated and of sexual abuse. And so, sure enough, this time they looked into it a little more and realized, uh-oh, yeah, maybe she is being abused by her father. And that's what they decided. And so then they took them away from the father. But I mean, it was, so for this next, it was a year or 2 years later. So for all this time later, and yes, she was able to talk more then, to be more verbal and admit what was happening. And so then they took them away from their father. Um, but and typically also, not only does it have to do with the status of the father or the mother, it could happen, but usually it's the father. Um, it's also fathers who they could not have any status at all, but fathers who are um uh well, narcissistic typically, but fathers who know how to charm
Oh yeah.
the social workers
Oh yeah.
and the therapists and all that. They use their charm, and especially if they're good looking.
Hmm.
And these,
Exactly.
because the people who are evaluating from CPS, as you said, they have very little education in terms of therapy, and they are influenced by all of these kinds of things. And so if there's a handsome father or a father who pays them a lot of attention, that kind of thing, oh, lo and behold, they don't see what the father is doing that's wrong.
Hmm.
So all of these things come into play. And so yes, it's very easy for them to get things wrong, which they do more than half the time. That's why I say they could flip a coin and do better, if they went with whatever the coin said.
Hmm.
So okay, so what now? What are you doing currently in regard to this to expose this?
Sure. So one of my partner, Ann Vandersteel in American Made Foundation and American Made Action, is a journalist and a great journalist at that. She was on the ground when North Carolina had their crisis with the floods and all of that. And so we were made aware very quickly that after this unprecedented weather event happens, that just defies everything, every pattern we know of how a hurricane works. When it hits land, it loses steam. It gains steam somehow over land there. And my personal opinion, it was a HARP event. It was absolutely orchestrated. They're doing land grabs and they're grabbing kids. So it was really here where CPS swooped right in. There was no help there to rebuild for food, anything like that, as we certainly saw once Trump got back in office. The help from FEMA came in. Prior to that, they did nothing. And Ann was there filming it. But we were getting lots of calls from people that were having their children taken. I'm sorry, you don't have a home anymore and you can't provide for your children now. So we're going to
Oh,
take them.
wow.
One woman who, a particularly egregious case, was her house collapsed on her and her daughter, and she had 3 children. The house collapsed on her. She dug herself out. She took her 10 hours to dig her daughter out. In the meantime, she put her other 2 young children upstairs with blankets, told them to stay on the bed upstairs, even though the roof was half open. And she dug her daughter out, and they had to airlift her and her daughter. And for some reason, this Black Hawk helicopter left the 2 little children in the house. We
Huh.
don't have enough room. We're going to have to come back for them later. This is the kind of devious stuff I'm talking about.
Huh.
I mean, a Black Hawk helicopter is very big. There was plenty of room in there for 2 small children. You keep the family together. They came back for those kids and brought them miles and miles away to another
Wow.
county to a shelter where CPS picked them up and said they're unaccompanied. And the mother got popped for abuse because she wasn't taking care of her kids.
Oh, wow.
And so she's still fighting this, but this is what what happened. It's a very orchestrated thing, and it's very insidious. So there's many families right now in North Carolina that don't even know where their children are.
Oh, wow.
Their children were taken from them not because they're abusive parents, but because, in my opinion, our government, pulled a weather event to do land grabs, and they're grabbing kids at the same time. So that's really how, we really started really honing in on CPS. And then, of course, Anne and I have been very privy to what's going on in the border, all the trafficking of children down there. The United States is the largest, you know, the largest customer for, sex slaves, child sex slaves, and that's really what we are, and what they are, and they should call it what it is. It's not child trafficking. They become sex slaves is what they are, and um, and the open borders made it much worse. But over the last couple years, we've had over 400,000 children go missing in our country.
Oh my God.
And just missing, Carol, just they never turn up again. So how does that happen? I mean, kids get, and why isn't anyone reporting these missing kids? This is all being run through the foster care system. 85% of children in foster care are sexually or physically abused by their foster parents. So these agencies are the do-gooders that do no good at all. I mean, if a child was abused at home, you're sending them into another abusive situation or worse. And now they're in an unfamiliar environment where there's no one there that loves them. There's no siblings there. So we're causing far more harm. And so this is a system that just needs to be absolutely obliterated. It's become so corrupt, and that's what our charters of freedom say. When it becomes so corrupt, you must abolish. It needs to be abolished. And putting a price tag on children's heads and adopting them out and taking them away from parents, that's a money machine. There's something very wrong here. It's a corrupt system indeed. So, that's really how I mean, having been involved in the system, having seen how family courts work, how corrupt this is. So this is a link between the judiciary, these agencies that I've already been told they have no power, and the judiciaries just don't care. So these people in black robes sitting on these benches throughout the country are the criminals. We need to abolish these administrative courts. They need to go. They are unconstitutional, and they don't protect people's unalienable rights and their due process. And so, that's the goal here, is to abolish these administrative courts and CPS and kick it back to the states. Everyone should be taking care of their own. Certainly, children shouldn't be left to be abused. But I was actually in a legit abuse situation, and a lot of people, this whole thing, believe the victim. Most women, when they get divorced, they throw out that charge. I mean, a lot of women, I would say far more than half, oh, he's abusive because they want more money or they want the kid.
Uh,
And they level these charges at each other back and forth. And so it's to a point now where you don't know who to believe. And that's
yes,
why these investigations become so contentious, and everyone's lying, and it's a mess. So that true victims of true violence, they can't get the help they need. They can't be believed because there's so many people lying about it. And so that has to stop.
absolutely. This is, I was just thinking you were talking about North Carolina. I mean, in California, we just had two big fires, and I wonder if they're trying to do those kinds of shady things here.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I mean, it happened in Hawaii, it happened in the
Yeah.
Tetons. What's underground in North Carolina is lithium and very large crystal deposits, which is what you need for AI. So when you look at all these areas where they're doing the land grabs with the kids, it's and then the insurance companies are involved in all of this. They don't pay out, or they come in and they offer you, look, you'll never be able to rebuild here. Now it's a flood zone. It's a mountaintop is now a flood zone. I mean, what they're saying is it defies logic, and they must think we're all incredibly stupid. But the American people, and I'm sure you see it on your show, people are waking up, they're seeing it. Doge has been huge in doing that, and now all of a sudden, all these fires everywhere, and um, what a coincidence. And then, the blue houses, the ones that have blue roofs don't burn, and what a coincidence. It's just, People are scratching their heads and they're waking up and going,
What
this.
is your understanding of that for why? I mean, I know I've heard that too. Why do you think that the people with the blue roofs, their houses don't burn?
It's a laser, it's an energy weapon, and it doesn't attack blue for some reason in the spectrum of the laser or whatever. It won't ignite blue. I mean, I'm not a, I don't know the inner workings of it, of the science of it, but that's what I've been told, and it kind of
Uh-huh.
makes sense. So, anyway, it's just, I feel so much for the people of North Carolina. I can't imagine being parents, losing your home, losing everything, and then they swoop in and take your kids too, and now you don't even know where your children are. So breaking the parents is key. I mean, you turn them into emotional wrecks, stress them out so badly, they're drinking, they turn to drugs because they're just so distraught. And now you got the kids scot-free because there's no parents even there trying to
Yes,
grab them.
yes,
So this is part of the breakdown of the American family.
yes. Now we only have 4 minutes left, but um, could you tell us about what are some of the other causes that American Made Foundation helps with?
Sure, like I said, the land grab is what we're after. So what we've put together,
Oh,
Dr.
your organization is working on that. Huh,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And so we've put together DOJA, the Department of Government Accountability. We'll be announcing that on the steps of the DOJ in DC next month. It's the Department of Government Accountability, and it's being brought to you by we the people. Because we're above everything. We're above the Constitution. We're above the government. We created the government. So the created can never be above the creator. And so
Right.
we created it and we're above it. So we need to get back to forcing everyone to adhere to our charters of freedom and our Constitution. So we have DOJA we're bringing forward, and that's going after all of these judges. We've also put together the United Law Coalition, which is a coalition of lawyers and law experts across the country. They're going to be going after these judges and these family courts and helping to dismantle them. We're also putting together a database that is it's comparable to the ones our government uses for them to upload data. So if you're in a court, for instance, Dr. Lieberman, and you see blatant, trampling of someone's rights, your expert opinion being completely disregarded and a child put in a bad situation and the judge does nothing, that's a violation, and that you can upload those documents, report that judge, report that court, report that CPS office, all those workers, because we're going to be going after people now. No one's going to be able to hide behind the corporate cloak anymore. Oh, my company told me to do it. No, you did it. If McDonald's, if you worked for them and they told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? It's like, just you're being told to violate the law and to violate someone's rights, and you can't do that. And if you're going to do it, you're going to be held personally responsible for it. You'll be prosecuted in your personal and professional capacity.
Well, that sounds really important. So tell people where they should go to find out more about your organization and the things that you're doing.
Sure, you can go to the AmericanMadeFoundation.org, and we will fairly soon. We will have the American Made Action website live as well. It's not live yet. That database is huge, and that's still being worked on, the back end of all of that. So, but you'll be hearing from us. We'll be having a press conference on the front steps of the DOJ next month. That'll be a big announcement. But it's really time that we push these agencies, these NGOs, all of these organizations. They need to be abolished, and the judges need to be, removed from the benches. And we need an overhaul of our judicial system for certain.
Well, I congratulate you and admire you. You know, it's so interesting because we were talking at the beginning about all the things that you went through, such horror,
Mhm.
and now all these amazing things that you're doing, because of that and to help other people, so that they don't have to undergo such horrors. So
Mhm.
I wish you well. Again, that's the department. I mean, that's say the website again.
AmericanMadeFoundation.org.
Okay, AmericanMadeFoundation.org. So check it out and see if perhaps you are one of these people who maybe you've had an experience with Child Protective Services. Maybe you've had your children taken away or the threat of that. or are thinking that that might be in your future. So thank you very much, Maureen Steele, and I wish you lots of good luck. And we will be looking forward to hearing about your event next month.
Great.
And
Thanks, Dr. Lieberman.
thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carol's Couch, and